The Women's Tennis Association is the principal organizing body of women's professional tennis. It governs the WTA Tour, which is the worldwide professional tennis tour for women, and was founded to create a better future for women's tennis. The WTA's corporate headquarters is in St. Petersburg, Florida, with its European headquarters in London and its Asia-Pacific headquarters in Beijing. The Women's Tennis Association was founded in June 1973 by Billie Jean King, and traces its origins to the inaugural Virginia Slims tournament, arranged by Gladys Heldman, sponsored by Joe Coleman, CEO of Philip Morris, and held on the 23rd of September 1970 at the Houston Racquet Club in Houston, Texas. Rosie Casals won this first event. When the Women's Tennis Association was founded, Billie Jean King was one of 9 players that comprised the WTA, also referred to as the Original 9. That included Julie Heldman, Valerie Ziegenfuss, Judy Dalton, Christy Pigeon, Peaches Bartkovich, Carrie Melville Reed, Nancy Ritchie, and Rosie Casals. Today, the WTA has more than 2,500 players from nearly 100 countries competing for $146 million in prize money. The Open era, in which professional players were allowed to compete alongside amateurs, began in 1968. Billie Jean King was a high-ranking tennis player in the late 1960s who won several titles and was interviewed in the media. The first Open tournament was the British Hardcourt Championships in Bournemouth. At the first Open Wimbledon, the prize fund difference was 2.5-1 in favor of men. King won £750 for taking the title, while Rod Laver won £2,000. The total purses of both competitions were £14,800 for men and £5,680 for women. Confusion also reigned as no one knew how many Open tournaments there were supposed to be. The tournaments that did not want to provide prize money eventually faded out of the calendar, including the U.S. Eastern Grass Court Circuit with stops at Marion Cricket Club and Essex County Club. There were 2 professional tennis circuits in existence at the start of the Open era. World Championship Tennis then imposed several sanctions on the group. The women were not allowed to play in the Whiteman Cup in 1968 and 1969, and the USLTA refused to include Casals and King in their rankings for those years. By the 1970s, the pay differential had increased. King said, "Promoters were making more money than women. Male tennis players were making more money. Everybody was making more money except the women." In 1969, ratios of 5-1 in terms of pay between men and women were common at smaller tournaments. By 1970, these figures had increased to up to 12-1. In 1970, Margaret Court won the Grand Slam and received only a $15,000 bonus, whereas the men could achieve up to $1 million. The low point in women's pay inequality came before the U.S. Open in 1970. The Pacific Southwest Championships, directed by Jack Kramer, had announced a 12-1 ratio in the prize money difference between what males and females would win. The tournament would not take place until after the U.S. Open. Several female players contacted Gladys Heldman, publisher of World Tennis magazine, and stated that they wanted to boycott the event. While she advised against it, she then created the 1970 Houston Women's Invitation for 9 women players. The original 9 women from the Houston event, along with Heldman, then created their own tour, the Virginia Slims Circuit, which would later absorb the ILTF's Women's Grand Prix Circuit, and eventually become the WTA Tour. The circuit was composed of 19 tournaments, all based in the United States, and prize money totaled $309,100. Formation of the Virginia Slims Circuit resulted in part from changes that tennis was undergoing at the time and from the way prize monies were distributed. During the first 2 years of the Open era, many male players began playing professionally, and the tournaments in which they competed, often men's and women's combined events, attracted increased investment. The International Lawn Tennis Federation began dropping several women's competitions from the tournaments it presided over. For example, in 1970, the ILTF sanctioned 15 men-only tournaments, all of which had previously been combined events. The WTA was founded at a meeting organized by Billie Jean King, a week before the 1973 Wimbledon Championships. This meeting was held at Gloucester Hotel in London. In 1975, the WTA increased its financial stature by signing a television broadcast contract with CBS, the first in the WTA's history. Further financial developments ensued. In 1976, Colgate assumed sponsorship of the circuit from April to November. In 1979, Avon replaced Virginia Slims as the sponsor of the winter circuit, and in its first year offered the largest prize fund for a single tournament, $100,000 for the Avon Championships. In the WTA tennis history, the Colgate Series, renamed the Toyota Series in 1981, included tournaments in all parts of the world, whereas the Avon sponsored events too.